Welcome to India Today, India Tomorrow, where we traverse across generations to bring you life stories that in a sense epitomize the depth and plurality of this great country of ours. Please welcome today Soli Sorabjee, former Attorney General of the country, one of the country's preeminent legal faces, and his daughter, Zia Modi, who in a sense is representing New India, one of the country's top corporate lawyers. Appreciate both of you joining me on India Today, India Tomorrow. Am I right in saying that between the two of you, you actually cut across 70 years of legal history, because you're the constitutional expert who came up in the 50s and 60s, and she is, in a sense, the product of New India in the millennium. You know everything that there is to know about the law over the last 70 years, right?
We'll accept that.
You'll accept that. But has that world changed, Soli uncle, from the time you became a young lawyer in the 1950s to the time when Zia became a lawyer in the latter half of the 20th century?
It is, because now I think the law has become a little commercialized. People want to enter the legal profession to make a quick buck in a very short time.
In a sense, they want to be a corporate lawyer like Zia and not a constitutional lawyer like Soli.
No, not like that. The thing is, what's forgotten is that the law is a service-oriented profession. We call ourselves learned, a noble profession, but it's service-oriented. Of course, you don't live on love and fresh air. You have to make money. But making money is not the only object by which you should enter the legal profession.
In a sense, he seems to be suggesting, Zia Modi, that maybe being a corporate lawyer is about making money, being a constitutional lawyer like him is about service.
Well, I think that what Papa is trying to say is that what is the mentality of the young lawyer who joins today? And I think that in keeping with the tradition, Daddy made sure that I went through being a very poor barrister for the first 10 years when I came back from New York. So I cut my teeth, so to speak. But you know, it has definitely changed. If you ask who makes more money, a corporate lawyer or a Soli Sorabjee or a Fali Nariman or a Harish Salve, I think the answer is obvious. So there's enough money in this space. I think it's what you do to get there.
Right.
And I think that youngsters today have loans. They think that the corporate world is not so unsexy, if you like. They like the billion-dollar deals they're doing. They like the interaction between different countries and different jurisdictions. And therefore, I think from the law school cachet, the amount of youngsters that are willing to dedicate themselves to an apprenticeship for a long enough period, for little money, has reduced.
Let's come to a word that Zia just mentioned, tradition.
Yeah.
What is this great tradition, particularly of Parsi lawyers, of Bombay, dare I use the word, rather than Mumbai lawyers, which you were such an intrinsic part of? Is there a great Parsi tradition of being lawyers?
Well, Parsi, we have great Parsi lawyers. We had Nani Palkhiwala, Homi Sirbai, and of course the great Sir Jamshedji Kanga.
Whose chamber you first joined as a young man in 1952. What was it like being surrounded by the Nani Palkhiwalas and Sir Jamshedji Kanga's chamber?
Great experience. Great experience. Not only that, there were Rustam Kola, many other greats there. But Sir Jamshedji Kanga was a towering personality. And he was the one who had a brilliant memory. People would come to him and say, Jamshedji, this is the position. Three Bombay Law Reporter joined HLM also. There it was. Once people came running to him. Homi Banerjee was arguing a case, and said, Jamshedji, please come, he's making concessions. So Jamshedji went to court. Chakla was presiding. But Sir Jamshedji, Mr. Banerjee already conceded. He is not briefed to make concessions, he's made to argue. And then Jamshedji argued, and 10 minutes he turned the court. Now, so he was a great father figure. And he was so humble. Otherwise, he has so many tales to tell us about old times, or the people he met. And that's how the tradition grew up.
And Nani Palkhiwala, who probably taught you all also for a while in government law.
Oh yes, Nani Palkhiwala, then Chandrachud, by Chandrachud, Yashwant Chandrachud, we used to attend the classes, never bunk those classes. Other classes we bunked. But Nani Paliwala's class, when he gave a lecture, when he taught, we made it a point to attend. The perspicacity, the clarity, and his expression was something really extraordinary.
You had that, it was almost a generation of Mumbai lawyers, Ashok Desai, yourself, Anil Diwan, Fali Nariman, Demtan Andhyarojina.
Yes.
I mean, when I think of these names, I trained to be a young lawyer, and these were the names we were told in Bombay who represented the best of the bar. It must have been a terrific time to be a young lawyer in the early 50s in Mumbai.
Yeah, of course, it was challenging, exciting. Independence we just got.
And your father wasn't a lawyer. Your father was a businessman.
Yeah, a businessman.
So you, in a sense, started the tradition which he's carrying forward.
I hope so.
Was there pressure of being Soli Sorabjee's daughter when you decided to take up law? Because you've taken very different trajectories. He went to government law and went through the bar and then went eventually to Delhi. You, on the other hand, went to Cambridge and then went to New York, practiced there and then came back. Was there pressure, though, at some stage that I'm Soli Sorabjee's daughter, I better deliver? What are you looking at him?
In fairness, I don't think Papa put pressure on me. In fact, I always tease him that giving me the baton was a little disappointing because I'm sure he would have wanted my brother, Jahangir, who wanted to be a lawyer, to have the baton as well.
He became a doctor. Jahangir is a top doctor.
But that's because my mother said one lawyer is enough.
One lawyer is enough, is it?
So he had to go and do his medical school. So I think that, was there pressure? I don't think pressure in that sense, but obviously you don't want to disappoint, and you don't disappoint your parents generally. As far as Papa is concerned, you didn't want to disappoint him in what you had chosen, to what was his part of his legacy. So the pressure to, I think the first 10 years when I was at the bar, I think the pressure was always to just do a good job. Being a woman in the 80s in the Bombay High Court was a fairly solitary presence. And in the beginning, Sorabjee's daughter or not, I wasn't flooded with briefs. And so Papa always used to tell me, if you don't have work, sit in the courts, observe the judge. Who is pro-landlord? Who is pro-union? What are their weaknesses? Where do they get stubborn about a point of law? So know your judge, basically, is where I spent a lot of my free time.
Interesting. Know your judge.
Absolutely.
What's the reasoning behind knowing the judge? Today, knowing the judge has a completely different connotation.
Knowing the judge meaning see how he reacts.
Exactly.
Yes.
Is he for technicalities? Does he like long-winded arguments about exactly? And if Zia, if I remember not, we appeared against each other.
Oh, you've appeared against each other?
Yes.
Where I lost.
Where you lost? Were you sort of...
My father was not gracious.
You mean even in court, Soli Sorabjee would not demonstrate fatherly love at all?
Not at all. Not at
The
all.
interest of the client was important and the cause of justice.
But in one case, I didn't realize that Papa was appearing against me because he had come down to Bombay.
Yes.
And I just thought he had come.
Yes.
And then suddenly at 2:45, we were in what we call an ex-parte application. And suddenly I find Papa getting up and saying, I appear for the plaintiffs. And I was going, holy hell.
But is the judicial profession much like, say, political dynasties? Are there judicial dynasties, legal dynasties? This has been talked about in recent times, that, there's the sunstroke disease at times. There were even... there was criticism that people from a family were appearing before a judge who belonged to the same family. Do you believe all of that? Are there these dynastical traditions at all? You didn't want your children necessarily to be lawyers, did you?
No. But I would have been happy if they had been lawyers, because I think it's a great profession. But I don't think there are such dynasties there in that sense.
It's merit, isn't it?
Is there a huge advantage in being someone's son or daughter when you get into the
It makes
profession?
a difference. Of course, it
Definitely.
makes a difference.
It makes a difference.
Of course. So I would think that being Soli Sorabjee's daughter, definitely, at least people assumed that I had a brain. And people assumed that if I was given a chance, I would perform. But if that performance failed once, twice, thrice, the fourth chance would not have been
So
sought.
it is merit driven. At the end of the day, if a young person today wants to enter the legal profession and has merit, nothing can stop them.
Well, look at the people who have made it. It's not necessarily with the family legacy.
But has the schooling for law also changed? Mr. Sorabjee comes from that, as I said, the great generation of the 40s and 50s who went through government law college and then to the bar. Today you have the national law schools. In your case, you went to Cambridge, New York, and then came back. Is the education richer today, you think, than it was 50, 60 years ago?
It is richer only because the ability to think wider, not just, I think Papa studied Roman law, right? So that gave you the foundation of basically logic and analysis. Today you don't have that, but you have several other things which are relevant today. I think that where perhaps the system has weakened is the lesser intensity on the junior-senior relationship. As a young lawyer, and I'm sure as Papa is still talking about his days as a junior, you pretty much inculcated through osmosis and hard work and training what your senior spent time to teach you. Today that spending time is not as much and is not as focused. So if you look at the set of juniors that have come out from my father's chambers today, you will have Harish, you will have Ganesh, you will have Gopal, you will have all these juniors who have actually had the benefit of a senior's time.
Mentoring. Some element of mentoring, which is the question. Where are the Nani Palkhiwalas today? Where are the great mentors for young lawyers whom they can work with, look up to?
That's where it's weakened.
That's where it's weakened.
That's where it's weakened. And therefore, you are, as a young junior, pretty much more on your own than you were before. You try and grab sound bites of wisdom from your senior, but spending 2-3 hours to talk about the next day's cases, I'm not sure how much of that is there.
Where are the Nani Palkhiwalas, let's say, as seniors, and an MC Chagla, as you mentioned him a little while ago, as the judge? That kind of judicial rigor and mentorship which was provided by a Palkhiwala to his juniors, or Chagla inspiring others to become judges. Is that a weakness today in the system?
Well, that's on the wane. It's not disappeared, but it's definitely on the wane.
Do the best lawyers want to be judges today, or do they really want to sort of take their craft to another level or teach it to another generation?
No. Want to make money.
Even in the Supreme Court and the High Courts?
Yes, there are some advocates which are known as adjournment counsel. Once getting a stay, the next thing they want to do is continuous stay by any excuse. Counsel has a dysentery, client has diarrhea, and it goes on that way. That's bad. So that gives the legal profession a bad name. Proceedings get delayed inordinately, and with the result, people lose faith in the system. Come on, this. Going on for years and years, and when the matter reaches, it's settled. So for 10 years, they've enjoyed the stay. When the matter reaches, they know nothing in the case, they come to a settlement.
So the whispers in the corridors of the judiciary about judicial corruption, about judicial accountability, are they true? We even hear whispers as high, now in the Supreme Court, something that was unheard of. Is that true, or are lawyers essentially gossips who gossip about what's happening around them?
Lawyers are gossips. And I won't pay much attention to all this because a lot of things are said in whispers. Essentially, Rajdeep, our judiciary is independent, is not corrupt. There may be one or two cases, there are black sheep in every profession, every walk of life. But no, our judiciary has maintained a good image of itself, and I'm sure it will continue with the assistance of lawyers themselves.
Despite the fact that for the first time you've had judges going to the public through press conferences, questioning the manner in which high-profile cases are assigned by the Chief Justice of India, no less, you're still saying that you believe that the profession is, that the highest judiciary is independent and is blessed with people of integrity?
Oh yes, this is an aberration, what happened.
You believe it's an aberration?
Yes.
But you look at the judges when you say that, is it difficult? You take a Rohington, you take a Nariman, or you take a Uday Lalit. People in the prime of their practice have certainly not been elevated for love of money. So you still have a court for which it is aspirational for some fabulous people. You see the first lady who's been called to the Supreme Court, Indu Malhotra, from the bar for the first time. So I think that the quality of the Supreme Court is still there. I think that it is too much discussion about corruption, etc., doesn't add to the stature of the court. And the incident that you mentioned doesn't mean it's corruption. It's a different point of view, right or wrong.
But the whole notion of adjournments, the whole notion of judicial delays, which Mr. Sorabjee alluded to, gives the common man perhaps a lack of confidence in the judicial system.
Possible, but then the political solution is to have more infrastructure, to make sure that the appointments come in a speedy fashion, to allow the government, who is the biggest litigant, today the biggest litigant in India is the government itself, to frame some rules for their law officers or for the bureaucrats such that if they say we don't want to fight this matter is worthy of settlement, they're not accused of corruption. Today, why is the court just being clogged with absolutely fairly frivolous, silly cases? Nobody wants to bell that cat. So there has to be a political solution to give safe harbor.
So you don't think, as some are alluding to the fact that in the 1970s the lawyers stood up against the emergency, it's time to stand up against what they believe is an undeclared emergency, a hidden emergency, where the executive interferes in the way the judiciary functions. Do you believe that the situation as we find ourselves in 2017-18 is similar to what it was in the 1970s?
No, I don't think so, Rajdeep. There's no executive interference in that sense. I don't think so.
You don't agree with that?
Not at all. That's just exaggerated.
In emergency, I remember in the 70s, I was somewhere in between England and America, and Papa had written a book on the law of press censorship. There was an actual fear that right-minded, right-thinking lawyers in particular would literally be picked up and arrested. And I remember Papa telling us about the stories on how the lawyers would go to Justice Tulsapurkar for a habeas corpus, a writ, to make sure that that particular person or whoever they named as an individual was not going to be picked up by the government. The fear was palpable at that time.
Tell us about that period, because you were an intrinsic part of that period. Habeas corpus petitions, Keshwanand Bharti, basic structure of the constitutional judgments. A period, in a sense, where a section of the judiciary, the great Justice H.R. Khanna and others, stood up against the power of Indira Gandhi. Must have been for you a period where your idealism sort of came to the fore. You must remember it with a fair amount of nostalgia.
Oh yes, Rajdeep, no question about it. Keshwanand Bharti is one of the cases I'll never forget, because I also addressed the court independently for 45 minutes. Basic structure. Under the Constitution, Article 368, you can amend the Constitution. There are no limitations. But the court said, no, you can't change the essential basic features of the Constitution. And that the basic structural doctrine was developed.
But was there a greater sense of idealism when you were, arguing those matters? That was, again, I think the period where eventually you decided to shift from Mumbai to Delhi, became the additional Solicitor General with Morarji as the Prime Minister. Must have been an interesting time working with Morarji Desai and his government.
Well, not exactly working with Morarji Desai, but meeting him sometime.
Yes.
And knowing his views on certain matters. Morarji called me because the Shah Commission proceedings were getting melodramatic. And Shah Commission informally conveyed they wanted to assess up a good senior experienced counsel. So I suggested the name of Karl Khandala. So Morarji said, Bombay Parsi, they are the only ones. I go, Morarji, correct. Then Morarji asked me, how's your mother-in-law? She's a Baha'i, and Baha'is don't take...
How is your mother-in-law?
Mother-in-law. Sasu Kemcha. She had Mujana Singapore. But Morarji Bhai, I told him, she is such a fanatic, it's a big cake. One teaspoonful of alcohol, she won't take it. Morarji said, she is right. Next time when you have the time you meet me, I'll convince you she is right. After 2 months, some other matter, again Morarji Desai would talk of Sasu, the same thing.
And she's a Baha'i. And your wife is from a Baha'i family. And basically you're saying your mother-in-law didn't touch a drop of alcohol. which
didn't eat a cake with a teaspoon of alcohol in it.
which endeared her to Morarji Desai.
Very much so.
He wanted you to go the same way and also stop having alcohol. What did you tell him?
That wouldn't be a Bombay Parsi.
What did you tell him when he hinted that you must stop having alcohol?
No, no. I just avoided the topic and came back to my mother-in-law. But Morarji Bhai, I must tell you,
Yes.
he decided something, he took a decision, stuck to it. And then we had Karl Khandala appearing before the Shah Commission, and proceedings became a little more balanced and a little more on the line.
You're watching India Today, India Tomorrow. We'll be back with Soli Sorabjee and Zia Modi in just a moment. You've seen, in that sense, various governments over the years, prime ministers, from the time of Indira Gandhi, certainly in the 70s, Morarji Bhai, and then, of course, the period VP Singh, Rajiv, and then later where you were Attorney General with Vajpayee as the Prime Minister. So you've seen them all. Any preferences? Any Prime Minister who you particularly had a good relationship with?
Vajpayee.
Vajpayee.
Very broad-minded, humanistic look, and always ready to not to get into a fight. For example, Sonia Gandhi, she wanted appearance before the commission, her representatives to appear. He said, करने दो नहीं, कुछ वादा है, मैं को नहीं वादा तो नहीं है, तो क्यों करने का? Advani had a little different view. He was a little strict about certain things. But Vajpayee was a very statesman-like person and a very human person. And I tell you, when I see him now, I don't see him now. After 2 years before I saw him in that condition, I had to make an effort that my ears don't roll down my cheeks because I can hardly speak.
Maybe there's something that Narendra Modi could learn from Mr. Vajpayee. I won't go down that route today, but maybe there is something he could learn. Yes.
There's a story where Papa was having a knee operation at Breach Candy, and Prime Minister Vajpayee was also having a knee operation that same day. So both had checked into the hospital the previous night, and I think Prime Minister got bored and asked Papa to come and chat with him in the room the night before. So my mother tells me this story where Daddy tells Vajpayee that it's very good you're going first and I'm going second, so that any mistakes the doctor makes, he can make on you.
Oh.
And the only one that laughed in the room was Daddy, because all Vajpayee's advisors looked at Papa as if he was completely out of it.
No, that's good Parsi humor. You know, my father once told me, went on a 1962 tour of the West Indies. There were 5 Parsis in the team. He said one thing we were never short of was humor and jokes. You know, there's something about the Parsis. Maybe that's why you all were good lawyers. You could always get a laugh in the court, apart from making a good argument.
We can laugh at ourselves. We don't get into a frenzy when some man cracks jokes about ourselves. Humor and Parsis go together. And in fact, that accounts for a lot of Parsis having a very tolerant, broad-minded attitude to men and affairs.
Are you proud of that lineage of the Parsis? I mean, a small community that has contributed so much. We just discussed the law. Sure. But, across the spectrum, the contribution they've made to industry.
Disproportionate impact.
Why? Even Homi Baba?
Impact.
And you made a nice point. That's right. And you said that the tolerance, the ability of the Parsis, maybe as a small community, to reach out to everyone else. Maybe there's a lesson there for today's India as well.
I suppose so.
But yeah, I'm sure there is. But, your law is mergers and acquisitions, multi-billion-dollar deals. And you've seen the other side in the bar when you first started off. What's been more challenging, the mergers and acquisitions or standing up like Mr. Sorabjee would in a Keshwanand Bharti case?
Standing up like Mr. Sorabjee would.
You really think so?
For sure.
Drafting all those mergers and acquisitions which could make the difference to the lives of major corporates in this country?
That's money. This is developing jurisprudence. So if I think what has really given me the grounding of my life, it is those 10 years where I stood up and had to battle on every count. And as a young junior, you can't decide that you only want to have a Companies Act matter to argue. You get what you get and you take it and say thank you. So right from excise or customs or real estate, transfer property act, And don't forget, I had not studied a day of Indian law in my life. I went to England, I went to America, I worked in America, I came back. I came back to a bar which had almost no women opening their mouths, with no knowledge of hardcore Indian law other than what I assumed was common law jurisprudence. And so I was talking to Papa one day and, getting nervous about how am I going to do this. And so Papa gave me a list of 41 bare acts that I had to buy for 2 rupees a bare act. And said, just read all this. And that's how I started. When a case came with excise, I would say, okay, bare act law, central excise and salt tax, and I would start on that. So those were the days where your grounding never fails you.
But yet you eventually set up this company, which is one of India's leading corporate law firms. What made you take that decision, that this is now what I want to do?
So a combination, really. India opened up, Manmohan's 1991 policy came, foreigners started coming back to India. In New York, I was really doing corporate M&A law. A lot of my friends in other firms, clients themselves, started knocking to come to India. So I was being approached to do that sort of law. Side by side, I'd finished with 3 children. The court schedule was grueling, simply because me being as anal as I am, I just could not read up every matter for the next day, half of which got adjourned. So I basically got tired and I tried to do both. I didn't want to give up court if I didn't have to, and I didn't want to lose out on the opportunity to do international M&A for the first time in India. And finally, I gave up.
You were happy with her decision to sort of give up arguing in front of all these top judges. You didn't tell Zia, come on, join me in Delhi, we'll form the Sorabjee and Modi, this double-headed team.
Not happy in the beginning, but as it turned out, I'm not unhappy.
So you have no regrets that you didn't ever experiment with the world of mergers and acquisitions. If you were to be a young lawyer today, out of government law, would you go into mergers and acquisitions or be happy sort of arguing on your feet?
Don't move me at all.
Mergers and acquisitions don't move you at all?
No, me at all.
So what moves you? Human rights, freedom of expression? Because that's what you've been identified with over the years. I mean, laws of sedition. Do you believe freedom of expression in today's society needs to be re-looked at? Are we as free, as tolerant as we were in the 50s and 60s?
No, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid today we are not affluent India, or we are an intolerant India. Any point of view which is not acceptable to some people, okay, talk against it, have something done. But now they are vandalized. The law is taken in their hands. Take, for example, this controversy about the movie.
Padma.
Yeah, you can't do that. People haven't seen the movie and they still want to have it banned. And what's worse, they say if they don't do it, we'll vandalize the halls. Now that's meaningless. That's a complete negation of rule of law. Against these things we must stand resolutely. Otherwise, what will happen in this country? We'll go the wrong way.
Has the political class become less tolerant, you think? Has society become less tolerant? What has changed?
Society has become less tolerant because any view which is not acceptable to the majority in society is looked upon as anti-national, is looked upon as being unpatriotic. And you can't. Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel, as Dr. Johnson said. But this trend has to be checked. And I think lawyers can do very well in appearing in cases to check this trend.
Also, I think the thought leadership of maybe the 70s or the 60s or the 70s, the thought leadership and the number of senior statesmen who are willing to engage in that leadership has reduced. I don't know the reason necessarily, but you definitely don't see a next generation of 40s and 50s making their statements, being bold in what they want to do in as much a number as you would have seen in Papa's generation.
Well, Bombay's become Mumbai. And that's, in a sense, the changing character. The cosmopolitan Mumbai that I grew up in, the inclusive Mumbai, is perhaps at times a more parochial city, I fear. You miss Mumbai, living in Delhi? What do you prefer, Delhi or Mumbai?
No, Rajdeep, it depends where you have friends. It's not a geographical location. And I prefer Delhi in one sense, that at least from October to March, you can really enjoy your warm clothes and be out.
Oh, you like the Delhi winter?
Yeah, I like that.
But I thought you would miss your Bombay of growing up because you were part of that Adi Marzaban theatre group where I'm told you met your 18-year-old wife at the time.
Yes.
And you were part of the jazz scene of Mumbai. And I've often been told, if you ask Soli Sorabjee, do you want to argue in court or go and listen to a jazz concert, you'll choose a jazz concert.
Yes, I would.
You really would?
Yeah, I would have certainly. Argue in court is a dull affair compared to listening to a good artist at a jazz concert.
But I must tell you a story. We
Yes.
were coming back from Brandeis, where there is a memorial, not a memorial, but a lecture instituted in Papa's name. Papa gave the lecture. And we were coming back to immediately take off from JFK, and that volcano burst, and the ash delayed all the flights. So we were stuck in New York, happily so, with mom and dad for 2 to 3 days. And I was fretting about, getting my flights back because my schedule had gone for a toss. And Papa took out this really small, dirty, wrinkly diary of his and started making calls to all his friends in New York to go to jazz clubs. So,
I'm told, in fact, I'm told when Bill Clinton came to India in the 1990s, you told him about your fascination for jazz.
Yeah, I did.
What was that?
You see, Rajdeep, what happens when we were supposed to meet him, so I went up to him and said, "Welcome to India, Mr. President. I won't talk to you about the Constitution or the rule of law." But another person, he was also Prez, Lester Young. Now, Lester Young was a musician whose nickname was Prez. So Clinton couldn't believe it, the Attorney General of India knowing Lester Young. Lester Young. His lips came out.
So the way to build bridges with the American president was to talk jazz. I mean, what is it about jazz that excites you so much? What makes jazz such an intrinsic part of your life?
Improvisation. You don't stick to the score. No jazz musician plays the same tune the same way. It's different.
So in a quiet and reflective mood, you'd rather read a nice book, a glass of whiskey, even though Morarji is no longer around, and listen to some jazz, right?
Glass of wine.
Glass of wine. You're a wine drinker. I see. Red or white?
Depends.
Depends. Are you also a jazz? Did that pass on or not?
my brother
Your brother is fond of jazz.
picked it up from Papa.
It's quite a family. Padma Sorabjee, who went to school with me, is a car fanatic.
Correct.
Jahangir Sorabjee, your elder son, is a doctor as well as a photographer.
That's right.
He's brought out a book on Bombay's photographs and is a jazz fan. And what about you? What's your hobby? Most lawyers have some big hobby apart from the law.
But
I
you played
wish.
the piano, didn't you?
I played the piano, but
He forced you to play it, is it?
my mother. My mother made me do everything possible to be an eligible wife. I went riding, I did swimming, I did crochet, I did knitting, I did sewing, I was the first batch of Tarla Dalal's cooking class.
My God. So these were all qualifications to be a good wife, which is why you married a Gujarati, because those are qualifications to be a good Gujarati householder's wife.
My husband never saw the benefit of, poor guy.
So you didn't pass on
Well,
the
the husband was here, the same compound.
Oh, your husband lived in the same compound, so this was
Building
mere
behind us.
samne wali khidki.
My boy next door, Jaidev, was who I married.
Who you married, who's now who's of course a senior leading businessman, and you were. She mentioned riding there. I saw a photograph in your house of a young Soli Sorabjee with his father and a horse at the Royal Western India Turf Club here in Mumbai. So you all had horses.
Oh, yes. I was leading in my horse. But that time someone scared me because I was under 18. He said someone's going to raise an objection that you raise the horse and it'll be disqualified. Oh, I was trembling when nothing happened.
But it must have been a more convivial Mumbai, horse riding here in South Mumbai at the Royal Western India Turf Club, listening to jazz music, and occasionally doing some court work. It must have been a very nice...
And Papa riding a motorbike, having an accident, breaking his leg, and having to sit in a fractured plaster and give his exams.
Really?
Was it the time you gave your exams?
So when you were in St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, you used to go to college on a bike, on a mobile?
No. Used
To attract all the young women of the college, is it?
Not that way, but actually, Rajdeep, when I heard the news that Gandhiji was assassinated, I prayed that it won't be, I hope it's not a Boston. I was so scared, what would happen otherwise? But I remember being taken there to the hospital with I was in the van, in the ambulance. It was a terrible moment.
So when Gandhi died is when this accident had taken place. You were in plaster.
Yeah.
And you were what? Riding a mobile?
No, Mobike was before that.
Okay.
Before that. This was later on when I was going there for some treatment.
Yes.
But Mumbai has a thing, I must tell you, we never bothered whom we were talking to ask about his caste or religion or anything. We got on well with whoever it is.
Is that what troubles you more? That you grew up in a Mumbai or a Bombay, as I said, where it didn't matter whether you were Hindu, Muslim, Parsi, Christian.
Yeah.
South Mumbai in particular represented the best of Mumbai cosmopolitanism. Is that something that deep down inside troubles you, that city which you were such a part of is no longer quite the same?
It does. It's not the same as before. You know, Nadi contractor, there's so many people in the cricket team, Polly Umbriga,
Yes.
then Padma Vibhushan. That somehow, unfortunately, is getting less, and that's what bothers me.
He gets nostalgic. He's getting nostalgic.
Take it as an excuse for Papa not to come back to Bombay often. Because now he says, this is not here, that is not here. But actually, he should be coming and seeing us more often.
Yeah, you should be seeing your grandchildren and sort of enjoying the sort of... It's less polluted, for one thing. It's less polluted than Delhi. Bombay is less polluted than Delhi. That's another big change.
Because of sea.
Yeah, because you've got the sea.
Yeah.
But, I'm just looking at the two of you and, just wondering, how do you see the future of the legal profession? If young people are watching this program, would you believe that the legal profession is something they should enter? And if they should enter, should they be entering because of money? Or should they be entering because you can have a certain amount of independence as a lawyer?
I think both. I don't agree with Papa that money is evil. Papa has made enough money and he's not evil. Okay?
Money is evil?
No, it's not. So I'm saying it's a way. To any profession you don't do for charity. I think it's a great profession, and especially for women today. Earlier, you had very few women in the profession. It did not attract. In fact, we used to call law the marriage degree, that you sent your daughter to do an LLB till you found a boy, and that was it. Today, that's not the case. I would say, our best lawyers in AZB are really mostly women. They stay the course. They are tough when it comes to hanging on. They work incredibly hard. The work ethic is fabulous. So it's a great profession for women. For men, I think it's a profession that now is on par for pay as any other. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a natural entry point. And law, as you know well, is a flexible profession. You can move from law to other things. So you don't have to be a lawyer till the day you die.
Absolutely, I'm a living example of that. But Mr. Sorabjee, you must miss the fact that when you were becoming a lawyer, you were all these young men of government law college. There were no women. There were no Zia Modis at the time. She says she's got better women lawyers today than men. When y'all were growing up, y'all were surrounded only by men.
My misfortune.
You must regret that. One of the many regrets of becoming a lawyer in the 50s.
If I had a chance of what would I like to become,
Yes.
a lawyer or a musician, I'd definitely become a musician and play the clarinet like Benny Goodman, no question about it.
I believe you almost convinced your grandson to become a clarinet player as well. Yeah. You sort of tried to pass your music traditions to the next generation.
But I didn't succeed.
You haven't succeeded. But you know what? What is it about the law that for you still inspires you? You're still there in the Supreme Court. You still go in your 80s to the court. What is it about this profession that still excites you and makes you so passionate to write about it in newspapers, to come on television shows and talk about cases?
To educate the people, to let the people know what the problems are, how we can deal with it in a proper legal manner. That's very important.
But you still get excited about going to the Supreme Court and seeing all the buzz around you?
Yeah, not excited so much, got used to it. But I'm still sure that the legal profession has a very important role to play, especially in the present context.
And therefore counsel.
And to counteract certain tendencies, authoritarian tendencies which spring up, whichever the government in power. Because frankly, no government can tolerate an independent judiciary or an independent legal profession. And the independence of the legal profession has to be maintained, otherwise the laws will become mere masons.
You know, lots of lawyers, Mr. Sorabjee, both pre-independence and post-independence became politicians. In fact, someone has moved a petition in the court saying, once you become a politician, then you must give up your practice at the bar. You ever thought of becoming a politician? Not really?
No. World of politics has no attraction for me. World of jurisprudence, world of the legal world has, but not politics. I can't really go that way. Chamragiri karo, get on in the world. It's against my temperament. I don't do it.
So you'd rather spend your time when you're not doing the law listening to your jazz music
And coming and
reading
meeting
good
his
books.
grandchildren.
and coming and meeting your grandchildren. That must be a
And
great
sometimes
source.
the grandchildren can come to Delhi and meet the grandfather.
Yeah, and I'm told now he's become a great-grandfather because you've had, you've become a grandmother.
Exactly.
So, you know, you could have and you've got a daughter who's a lawyer, so maybe the family tradition will be carried on to a third generation.
Inshallah.
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 Inshallah. Okay. What do they say in Parsi for inshallah? I'm trying to think.
No, there's no inshallah.
Is there an inshallah in
Thai to Thai.
Thai to Thai? Well, that's a lovely way on which to end because the Parsis are my favorite community of all. And the one thing I miss being in Delhi, off Mumbai, is having a good Parsi bhonu.
Well, I hope today will correct that for you.
That's right. So next time when I come, I'm going to get Mr. Sorabjee to lay me out the best dhansak, or we'll go to Ripon Club.
No, Dhansak at home.
Dhansak at home.
Better than Ripon Club.
Dhansak at home, better than Ripon Club. Mr. Sorabjee, Zia Modi, it's been a pleasure talking to two of you. Thank you very much for joining me on India Today, India Tomorrow. That's it on this special